Welcome back to Nortman Reviews, everyone. And now we are looking at a comic that I've been wanting to look at for quite a long time. And again, we're going to be looking at the whole graphic novel of Kingdom Come. And I'm going to give props to Mark Waid. He's been an established writer. He's done stuff for Marvel and DC for a long time. Especially during that time, he was a well-known name. But what sold this and what made this so memorable is Alex Ross. That name is basically artistic God. He came along at a time in comics where nothing was seen like this. Comics were done by, drawn by Jack Kirby, and then later George Perez, and all these classic artists. And then it came into like the 90s with like the Image guys, Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld, Todd McFarlane, who had such like eye-catching and explosive and dynamic stuff. I'd never seen art like this before. Now, he did do stuff for Marvel first. He did like the Marvels series, which I don't have. And that's where he kind of got his name. But I feel like he went into like superstardom with Kingdom Come. And it's not just him. The story by Mark Waid is very good. Like, it's very compelling. And I'm surprised they haven't made this into some kind of animated movie. This would make a great, like, live-action movie. Like, they don't have to put it in a goddamn, like, DCEU or something like that. They're doing, like, their Elseworld shit. So they could do maybe something like this. But let's get into this. This came out into like single issues, and I bought the graphic novel. Look at that. Look at that shit. This is on like the glossy paper, and it's gonna like, where I have this, I have a light right above me, so you're gonna see this glare every now and then. I apologize, but I wanted to make sure that this art was seen in like some of the best light that I could. But dedicated to Christopher Reeves, who makes us believe that a man can fly. This cover is a great image, like all Alex Ross art is. This kind of depicts a battle that happens at the end of the story. Now, my brothers and I, when we started reading comics, they started getting comics first. And then I started reading after them, and we were into X-Men and Marvel. So I read only Marvel for such a long time. I didn't read like hardly any DC stuff. Obviously, I know who Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman is. But I didn't know some of these other characters, like, they call him Captain Marvel here, Shazam. This comic is just littered with references and characters of people who I had no idea who they were, in the DC universe. And I got into DC much later. I enjoyed the characters more so now. Like, a lot of it had to do with the Justice League cartoon. And also, when I worked at a comic book store, since I didn't know anything about DC, I knew a guy who was really into DC who worked with me. He had a bunch of knowledge, and he would just kind of tell me about some stuff that was very intriguing and exciting to kind of hear. So I'm into DC now, still mainly a Marvel guy, but this was also piqued my interest in DC a lot about a bunch of the stuff that was going on. So these were the covers of the original 4-issue stories. And again, like the time and effort it takes Alex Ross to make this ultra detailed, super realistic painting comic book art. It's one thing to make a one image, but as we're going to see here, he does panel work. And he does, from my understanding, does a lot in airbrush. And this was in the time before there was like digital paintings. Like, I have an iPad and I can use an airbrush tool, which is all digital, and it kind of can work. And I'm sure I know there's way better artists than me who've done some great stuff digitally, but he did this all like on a piece of paper with an actual airbrush after he penciled everything, and he used reference so much. We can kind of look in the back. like that's, I think, his father, who he basically modeled the main point of view character off of. We'll show it. I was trying to see if they'd show something. Like, yeah, here's like some of his pencil work, right? Like, he is just a good artist in general, and then how he can paint and color it afterwards is just also really good. We could go in and look, and maybe I will at one of these times. It has like a diagram of who these characters are. I won't go into all of them, but there's so many. And was this Mark Waid telling him, these are the characters I want you to put, or was this a lot of Alex Ross, or a combination of both? But in the front and center is the Spectre, who, I don't know, read enough of DC to know, but he's a godlike being, right? He's very extremely powerful. Somebody in the comments, can you kind of explain what he is? I'll try to do my best as the story goes on. But he's an important figure here. So, as with the title Kingdom Come, that has like very religious implications, right? And this starts off with, there were voices and thunderings and lightnings and an earthquake, much like you'd hear in a sermon or if you go to church or something like that. And this eagle fighting this bat. And there's like some stars here. I'll point out that later in the story there's a confrontation between Batman and Wonder Woman, and this is kind of a preluding to that. I don't know if I picked that up on that in the first try. But then look at it goes to, and there followed hail and fire mingled with blood. There fell a great star from heaven, burning as if it were a lamp. And I beheld and heard an angel saying with a loud voice, woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth. And so, like, you see in the fire and this lake of blood and all these people fighting, and this, the way it's composed here, and it seems like this is like a prophecy or like the book of Revelations or something like that. The apocalypse is happening. So there's a bunch of like the religious overtones to this story. So you have this character, this pastor, I forget this guy's name. His name is Norman. And he's talking with this guy Wesley. I don't know if this character is supposed to be somebody, because he sees like, I don't know, the doctors and stuff as these weird guys here. I don't know if that means something. But this Norman, this pastor, he's like reading to this guy in this hospital and just kind of reading the book. And he's like, that's enough. But this guy wants to hear more. And he says, I see things, divine prophecies. And he's like, they're not nightmares, but they're visions. And Norman here is just kind of like, okay, like, you're just having a bad time. And he's just like, I want to hear more. I need to hear more. You need to tell me, for me, not for you. He's like, I owe you much. I have nothing to leave you save insight. And he says, read the book. And so he starts in 1 Corinthians. And you see the city back there. And he says, now as I say, brethren, the flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God. Behold, I shew you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we all shall be changed. And as it gets closer on the city back here, you see all these like people flying, superheroes. What's going on here? So then it cuts to the guy Wesley. He had died. He passed on. So Norman here is at his funeral. And there's not a lot, like, this is great art and everything, but not a lot is going on here besides like setting up the world that they live in. It's in the future of the DC universe, right? How many years? I don't know, 10, 15, 20 or so. And they start talking about how most of the superheroes aren't around anymore. The classics, the Justice League. They're more of a myth and a legend, even though everyone knows that they're real. Like, they made this planet Krypton. It's this restaurant of all these characters dressed as some of like the, Green Lantern, Wonder Woman, some of the classics. They're like the waiters and waitresses, so it's a Justice League themed restaurant. So he's kind of just explaining all that here. And so he says he's kind of monologuing to himself, thinking to himself. He says, according to the word of God, the meek would someday inherit the earth. Someday. But God never accounted for the mighty. So this big page here has a bunch of these superheroes, superpowered people just fighting one another. Now what they establish is that the criminal element has basically been extinguished, and these are all the children and grandchildren of the heroes of yesterday. Like, for example, I don't know who all these characters are, but I do know who this is. I don't know her name here, but she is the daughter of Starfire and Dick Grayson. Robin, right? They had a romance, and you can see, like, with her dark hair that she got from her father, but the powers that she has from her mom. And that these children, like, there's no criminal element, right? They've gotten rid of all the supervillains, but these guys are just bored. So they just fight each other because, right? And there's nothing anybody can do about it. Like, all the other heroes are gone. There's no one to keep them in check. There's no one to oppose them. And they're challenged but unopposed. They are, after all, our protectors. So they don't give a fuck about, like, bystanders and everything, So Norman has to do his part to, like, save this little girl. This guy just got knocked into something. He's laughing his ass off. Great artwork by Alex Ross. All the details. There is so much that I will not be able to, like, point out everything. Like, little details in the background and stuff. I think Wizard did a issue somewhere where they pointed out a bunch of this stuff, and it was, like, ungodly amazing. And he's like, I tell myself that this will pass too. That, these guys will eventually stop doing this kind of stuff. As they are kind of fighting, there's a news report that comes up. And a lot of people stop to take a look, and they explain it later, but there's, like, it's the Daily Planet, and there's Kansas, and there's, like, this weird, like, these circles, and that represents radiation in that state. And he says over here, time has not yet run out for humanity, but then after this, he says, I am wrong. Even these, superpowered people stop to, like, take a look. So then he goes on with, like, more scripture talk. But he's telling that to his church. I don't know I forget the word you use for it. But he's kind of going a little bit intense with it, The third part of the trees was burnt up, and all the green grass was burnt up, and he opened the bottomless pit, and the sun and the air were darkened. Fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of judgment is come. And, like, everyone's just like, Jesus, man. All these, like, kind of elderly people who are there for, like, some kind of comfort. They're just not getting it from him, and he's just like, I'm sorry, forgive me. This isn't what I wanted. And they leave, but they're all kind of giving him looks. And they came seeking encouragement, but he's like, I cannot give that. And he says, the news, meaning this news right here. He's like, Wesley knew. The visions he had, the prophecies, the dreams, I thought he was insane. But if he was, then so am I. And so there's like just this brief picture of this man being in pain or something. And his dreams are now mine, and they are visions of utter despondence. He wanted someone to act, but what can anyone do? Kansas proved it. Thanks to the superhumans, the end is near, and the word of God so very far. And he looks up away, and there's comes this being. That's the specter, right? And he's like fucking in shock, amazed. And the specter, I mean, look at this art by Alex Ross here. The colors and like the paintings and the shading he does and the lights and everything. It's just so good, man. Like, this just looks like photorealistic shit. Like, look at him here. And that's... God damn it. No, that's him there. And he's like, oh my God, the visions are talking to me. He's like, hardly. In fact, your sanity may be paramount to mankind's survival. He's like, you have the dreams. And he says, are you an angel? Of a sort, a higher power has charged me with the task of punishing those responsible for this coming evil. So he's kind of a spirit of vengeance, right? Is that what he is? Long ago, I would have judged swiftly with clarity, but my faculties are not what they once were. In order to carry out this task, I must anchor myself to a human soul who seeks justice. He's like, but I don't, you will. So now what we're going to do, the specter is going to take him along. It's almost like a Christmas Carol, kind of a ghost showing him like ghosts of Christmas present kind of a thing. Spectre uses his powers to make them invisible, and he's going to show them like all these things that are going on. And he's saying something is gonna happen. I was too late to do it with Wesley. But your dreams will guide us both. In order to fulfill my mission, we must both witness the events that will lead to Armageddon. That's what they're worried about, some form of Armageddon. He's like, but I can't leave my congregation. They looked at me for like, and he says, for what? Like, you've kind of failed them already. So he's like, okay. He's like, how is you cannot avert this catastrophe? That's not my task. Once Earth's boasted other saviors who might have stemmed the tide of destruction, but as you will see, they are no longer the solution. They are in many ways the problem. So suddenly, like they're here in this field at this farm. And this guy is there, and he Norman here starts kind of whispering. He's like, there's no need to lower your voice. We cannot be seen or heard even by him. And this is Superman. Okay? And he's like, he looks familiar. He's like, he should. He came to this world. He is not of this world. He came to Earth. So there's Superman. He's doing some simple farm work. Here's some detail you can see here. There's his dog Crypto. And I think somewhere there's a cat. Superman had 4 super animals, I'm guessing. He had his dog, he had a cat, he had a horse, and he had a monkey. And there's a little monkey back there. So, he is not, let's see, he has a name that he has not used in 10 years. It says Superman. He has a self-imposed exile. And Norman's like, gosh, he's so alone. He's like, not always. And there's Wonder Woman. And she says, hello, Clark. And he gives her this look. And she says, Cal. So, for whatever reason, Superman's having a hard time being called by his human name that we don't quite know. So, why is that? Well, we're going to fucking find out. So just hold on. So Wonder Woman's here to, be comforting. And, she's like, you can't do shit. You can't face your fear. And he says, I'm not afraid of him. And I'm like, I didn't mean that, you dumb shit. He's like, you've lost a lot. Basically, kind of telling a history that we don't quite know yet. And he makes a comment that things here grow, and she taps the wall, and it's this weird holographic image of a farm. He's not actually on the farm. He's like in this fortress of solitude, apparently. Again, this fucking artwork is just amazing. Just this realistic photo shit that Alex Ross does. So, you know, he's trying to go back to his roots, but he's not on an actual farm, Avi. And Wonder Woman's here to tell him about something that happened on the outside of the world. And she talked about he's out of control. And he's like, yeah, I fucking tried to tell them that a while ago. He's like, okay, but stop punishing them, you dipshit. He's not interested, but he goes walking out, and she says, like, just basically look for yourself. Take a look and steel yourself. So this is kind of a cool thing. Like, he walks into this room, and it's all black, and just says on, and all these TV monitors, and he's floating. So he just, like, has this, like, really, like, long, deep tunnel of a room with all these TV shows, or news shows, TV monitors, and he just, like, walked out. There's, like, fucking Bob Barker. There's that one guy from that old TV show. I forget who it is, what his name is. Alex Ross will use references. That's supposed to be, like, kind of a Boba Fett character right there. And all these, they're talking about this person, Magog, and it's in all these different languages, which apparently he can understand because he's a Superman. Tragedy struck, and it's Magog. Magog. And so it goes to the fight, the footage of the fight, and they're fighting the parasite. Yeah. And they're attacking him. There's the Boba Fett fucker. And the news reports continues on. It says, claim his pleas for mercy were ignored. Tragedy might have been averted had Magog relented. So, you know, Magog and these guys are, again, one of these new generation of superheroes, but they just don't give a fuck about what they're doing. They're kind of just all about fame, I guess. Onlookers surprised and yet, staggered, yet not surprised by the savagery of the attack. Then he's being attacked by Captain Atom. Is this the Captain Atom that is in the regular universe? I don't know. But it says, like, the parasite has split Captain Atom open. He split him open, and then it cuts off. And then the feed goes dead. And so then it cuts to, like, all these dead animals and just this devastation. Early reports indicate immediate casualties numbering close to 1 million as the dying atoms' radioactive energy swept hundreds of kilometers. So Captain Atom, basically an atomic bomb, basically inside him, just went off in, like, the middle of Kansas. And that's what this was back here that everybody saw somewhere, right? Fuck. Oh, here it is. I went right by it. God, I'm stupid. Anyways, that was dumb. Hey. So Wonder Woman's back. She's like, our generation have always taken this lead from you. We always have. He's like, you need to face this so the rest of us can go on and be with you. And he's like, I can't do it. There's nothing I can do. Go back to your island. You're safe there. So Wonder Woman flies off, and there's, Fortress of Solitude with some Aurora Borealis and the cool Spectre and Norman McKay back there. I'm pretty sure he based her off Linda Carter, which why wouldn't you in this case? So they're talking about, who's the rest of us? Who's he talking to? And then we're going to go on a bit of a montage of some of the other heroes. So we get a vision of Flash, and he's just, like, so speedy and so fast. He lives between the seconds of time. He just is a guardian of, what is this city called? I always forget. Keystone City? That doesn't sound right. Isn't it Central City? But you can see these red lines as he's just zipping through. He's just like a presence there, a guardian angel who's just righting wrongs and just taking care of everybody, like in the split seconds. Then there's Hawkman. Hawkman's a dude. Like, I know he had some like weird past of like Egyptian origins, but he's also like part of a alien race, and somehow those two are mixed. But now he looks like he's just a bird dude here. But I thought he was a man with a mask on. I don't understand what's going on here. He's in the Pacific Northwest, and he's kind of just a guardian over, like, he's an environmentalist, basically. Then there's Green Lantern, and I don't know which version this is. Is this Hal Jordan? Is this Kyle Rayner? Is it the original Alan Scott? Alan Scott, he didn't have, like, a ring, did he? Like, he was a different kind of Green Lantern, wasn't he? I don't know. Can't remember. But he has this, like, Green Lantern city that he's, like, basically waiting for an extraterrestrial threat to come by, but he's still waiting. He waits still. Talks about, you know, how they were gods and they did all these cool things, but they left humanity to its own fate. And then he's asking, like, wait, I heard of another one. What of the Batman? Batman. So cut to what we can presume is Gotham City. And there's this group of kids running around, and I think I remember reading that Alex Ross based these off of, like, Fat Albert and those characters, which I'm not 100% familiar with. But, yeah, that's a thing. So these kids are running. Looks like they're up to no good. Got a gun or something. And this big big fucking bat robot just appears. Freaks them out. They go running. Another one drops by and it just like encircles them. So, you know, shining a light down on them of the bat symbol. And they catch these guys. And it says Batman has his city under control. So, Norman's like, okay, well, what are you showing me? Like, that's all you have? You have a bunch of, like, fucking assholes who are just, like, making the world a miserable place, and a bunch of other assholes who don't give a fuck and used to protect us but now don't? He's like, you're an angel, you're a messenger of hope. It's like, I did not promise that. He's like, a greater power sent you. Sent you. And then he starts, like, quoting scriptures. He's like, these guys, he's just yelling that these guys are acting out of boredom with abandon. Before Kansas, they at least had some grasp of responsibility. Now they don't even have that. It's like, Wonder Woman was right. The madness will go on. So, like, he's just, as these two groups of super people are fighting each other, you know, they're on this, I forget what you call this, like ferries people in a trolley in the sky. I forget what it's called, but it's going to like crash. He's like, Madison is going to go on. Don't you understand? We need hope more than ever. He's like yelling at him. We need hope. And then suddenly there was a wind. Not a wind, a blur of motion, bending the steel of their weapons. So Alex Ross is a great job on creating an effect of like this blur of motion coming around, speeding past, fucking up all these guys, creating like this tornado whirlwind thing of the water, saving this this transport thing, putting it on the side of the bridge, and everyone's like, what the fuck? But they knew and remembered. Look, up in the sky, we know what's coming. And there's goddamn Superman back. Awesome shot of Superman. He's in this like black, red and black. Wasn't that kind of an original costume? He had black there instead of yellow. And everyone was happy, you know. Our faith was rewarded. He is returned. But then Norman gets this like vision of Superman in agony and pain. He's like, the threat of Armageddon hasn't ended. It's just begun. So there's that. There's the end of the first issue of chapter 1.